From Interior Alaska's most trusted news source, this is the Fairbanks Evening News.
Good evening and thank you for joining us. Our top story this evening, members of Congress have been working to come to an agreement and thousands of federal jobs are on the line.
More than 800,000 federal jobs to be exact, and nearly 15,000 of those jobs are right here in Alaska. Many could face furloughs that would leave them without a paycheck. Up until hours ago, active duty pay was also on the line, leaving thousands of soldiers, both at home and serving overseas, without income for their mid-month paycheck. Congress was able to come to an agreement and pass a bill that would protect active duty paychecks. However, DoD employees have yet to see any relief. And according to Senator Lisa Murkowski's social media outlets, the outlook is not good. Officials with U.S. Army Alaska say although active duty pay may be saved this time, the effects of the shutdown will still be seen.
Should the government shutdown happen, we do expect that our training ranges and a lot of our upcoming training events will be impacted. Exactly how, I think, kind of remains to be seen once something exactly happens. But we rely on civilian Army employees to run our ranges. That's down here at J-Bear, that's up there at Fort Wainwright. So without those range operations folks there to make sure that we can run a safe, effective range or a training operation, it really puts a damper on our ability to train.
Military commissaries overseas would be open in the event of a government shutdown. However, stateside commissaries, including those here in Alaska, will be open only for a full business day on October 1st to reduce the amount of perishables on hand before beginning a systematic closure process to account for unsold products and secure facilities.
The Alaska Public Offices Commission today made the decision not to take expedited action on a complaint filed over a political campaign before the election tomorrow. Ron Arnold lodged his complaint after hearing the owner of the Ranch Motel call into a radio program and tell listeners they can donate to Fairbanks mayoral candidate Vivian Stiver's campaign by dropping off donations at the motel. Arnold's complaint says the use of the motel as a drop-off point for donations is an in-kind contribution, as is the use of employee time. The commission will address the issue during their next meeting in November. Owner of the Ranch Motel apologized after giving her thoughts about the situation.
There was no intent to hide anything here, and I have to say that I find the timing of this very suspect, since it happened in the very last minute of this campaign, and as soon as the papers were filed, Mr. Eberhardt's campaign, there's a big story in the paper on Saturday, where in fact charges were filed against Ms. Stiver in a local hotel, and to call a press conference, it doesn't sound like, to me, a private citizen trying to do his duty. It sounds like somebody trying to influence a campaign. And I'm sorry if I broke a rule. I am really sorry.
Tomorrow morning, the polls will open to interior residents voting in the municipal elections. Voters will be selecting new members for both city and borough seats. The News Center takes a look at all those running in this report. This year, there will be 14 candidates running for 9 seats. Many of those running are uncontested, which is a change from prior election years. This year, the only contested seat in the city will be in the city mayor's seat. Current city mayor Jerry Cleworth cannot run due to term limits. This year, 2 candidates are vying for that seat, former councilwoman Vivian Stiver and Fairbanks councilman John Eberhardt. The rest of the city council are uncontested and include city council seat C candidate Bernard Gatewood, while seat D is again uncontested and held by Jim Matherly. Moving to borough assembly candidates this year, many are relatively quiet in comparison with years past. Diane Hutchison is currently holding the seat, and she will be again running uncontested for Assembly Seat B. Assembly Seat C, held by Natalie Howard, will now be a race between Larry Morris and Janice Golub. Assembly Seat I, held by Carl Castle, will put him running against the former president of the Associated Students of the University of Alaska Fairbanks, Brandon Meston. Finally, on to the school board candidates. One open seat, Seat D, is the race that drew the most contenders. Currently held by Christina Brophy, board member Charlie Leonelli, April Johnson, and Allison Lambert are now vying for that seat. School Seat C, no challengers against current individual holding seat Sue Hall. Wendy Dominique is now running for School Seat G, which was previously held by Charlie Leonelli, who, as mentioned earlier, is now vying for Seat D. Stay tuned to News Center 11 as we will have all your election coverage live tomorrow evening.
Also on the ballot, voters will decide the fate of a school bond package originally proposed by the Fairbanks North Star Borough School District. News Center 11's Tyson Paris-Hansen looks at the details of Proposition 1 and 2.
The Fairbanks North Star Borough School District would like to rebuild and renovate several schools around town, and voters will decide whether they want their property taxes to help pay the costs. Proposition 1 gives the community the chance to rebuild Ryan Middle School and demolish the old, outdated building. The executive director of facilities management says Ryan no longer meets code for earthquakes and must be fixed.
It just became apparent that it wasn't just a normal renovation, that this was much, much more. What we found was housing students and what have you, that it was going to be more expensive to renovate the existing building than to build new. And so that's why we're in the situation that we're in right now.
Voting yes will approve the borough to issue bonds that amount to $37 million. They estimate the state could reimburse 60% of the cost and pay an $880,000 grant. Proposition 2 would allow the borough to pay for upgrades to 5 schools in the area. Voting yes on Proposition 2 will pay for renovations for 2 Rivers, mechanical system replacements for North Pole Middle School, but mainly roof upgrades for U Park, Tanana Middle, and Tookasik Brown.
Most of these roofs are 30 years plus old, and you don't want to wait until we're ruining everything inside the buildings before you take and replace the roofs. This is a proactive approach.
The bonds for Proposition 2 amount to $19 million. The school district estimates the state will reimburse 70% of the costs, leaving $8.5 million for the borough taxpayers to cover. Tyson Paris-Hansen, News Center 11.
All right, when we come back, we take a look at gas prices.
And a conference was held in Anchorage on the complicated issue of human trafficking. Those stories are next. Stay with us.
And welcome back to the Fairbanks Evening News. On Saturday, a conference was held in Anchorage on the complicated issue of human trafficking. Victims are often afraid to leave their pimps because of retribution or promises of food, money, and shelter. Kiana Marshall was 15 when she babysat for a woman who was a madam and was introduced to a man who forced her into the trade. She got away and is now with a group called Sex Trafficking Alaska, whose members say the state's prostitution laws are punishing women who are forced into the sex trade. The Alaska Attorney's General Office says a change in prostitution laws isn't necessarily the solution.
Forced me into sexual acts with him. Forced me to watch him perform sexual acts on others, use violence.
They have to agree to cooperate. We have to get their trust, and they have to come forward and testify and cooperate with us in trying to get the traffickers.
Even though there are no absolutes in the price of fuel, it is the time of year when they usually go down some, those prices. News Center 11's Monty Bowen talks about why they do and why some things could keep that from happening.
Due to federal environmental regulations, we use a different type of gasoline in the summer than we do in the winter. The change usually comes about as Halloween approaches.
Once we get the Labor Day weekend in our rearview mirror and we're moving closer to October, we see winter blend gasoline getting into the market. And that's cheaper to produce because it has fewer additives, it takes the refineries less time to produce it, and it brings a bit of a benefit to consumers because it helps bring the price at the pump down.
Even though Alaska doesn't always follow the trend, it seems to have been lately.
We're seeing improvements. We have an average price today at $3.87 a gallon. That's come down 4 cents in the past week. A month ago, we were looking at $4 even as the statewide average.
There's also another factor this year.
That we're seeing crude oil prices coming down, and that's due largely to the fact that what was called the Syria premium that had been put on crude oil a couple of weeks ago seems to be disappearing. Back then, crude was up as high as $111 a barrel.
Right now, analysts believe we're in a good position to make the price of gas better for the motoring public.
We have much stronger production stateside than we've seen in recent years. We have a good amount of crude coming in from Canada, and we're well supplied from Mexico. So all of these things are combining to help bring the price at the pump lower.
The one thing that could throw a wrench into the works is the U.S. getting involved in a conflict.
Any kind of a major event in the Middle East in Syria, then I think you'd see crude oil prices spike, and we'd also see wholesale and retail prices go up with it. But absent something like that, and if we can avoid things like hurricanes, then I think we're going to see consistent declines from now through the remainder of the year.
Monty Bowen, News Center 11.
So, Joe, today's Monday, and I know what that means.
What does that mean?
That means the I-5.
Oh, you're right. Yep, the I-5. And it was a busy weekend for interior sports. There's a lot going on, like the regional titles in high school sports. And there was some hockey up at UAF. Oh, nice. Yeah, it was really good. So that's always good to talk about hockey. So we're going to have all that in the I-5 and a lot more coming up next. Hello, interior sports fans. Joe Cook back in the sports seat this Monday for another weekend recap. On Saturday, the public got its first look at the Natick hockey team. In the blue-gold game, fans were filing into the Patty Ice Arena for what would be an exciting game. Jarrett Larson, the former Ice Dog, he opened the scoring with a power play to put the blue team up 1-0 in the first period. The assistant Tyler Morley, Josh Erickson, a freshman on the gold team, evened the game right before the end of the period, going to the break with a 1-1 game. The Natick had an on-ice skills competition. Junior Nolan Youngman won the fastest skater competition. Nolan Kaiser won the hardest shot event. Kaiser's best 102-mile-per-hour shot. In the last period, J.D. Pearson scored for the blue team, but with 3:42, Colton Beck for the goal. He tied it at 2-2, and we will go to a shootout. Sean Cahill made the stops, and Colton Pareko and Morley made the goals. The blue team wins 3-2 in a shootout victory.
Yeah, just coming down. I know we do Juice Boy every week there, so tried to find his weak spot and just put it home.
It felt good, but it was a little bit of a gift. It was an early Christmas present. So like I said, maybe it was just something because I'm back in Fairbanks, so I needed to bury one right away, but it felt good.
I remember when I came in as a freshman, I just tried to do everything I could. Maybe it wasn't anything on the game sheet, but just as long as you feel like you're contributing, and obviously these guys did, it's really nice to see.
All good things have to come to an end, and the Ice Dogs' start to this season was the best in years. The Fairbanks team fell 5-2 to the Minnesota Wilderness in their bid for 8 straight wins. It was tied 1-1 going to the second period when the Wilderness pulled a Fairbanks to score 3 goals in the second period. The story was penalties. The Ice Dogs tallied 37 penalty minutes. The Wilderness had 8 minors and 2 majors themselves. Jacob Hetz and Taylor Munson scored for Fairbanks. Your Ice Dogs will have their first home games of the season this Friday and Saturday, hosting the Corpus Christi Ice Race. And the high school cross-country Region 6 championship races were on Saturday at the North Star Golf Course. The West Valley boys continued their dominance, winning their 7th region title in 8 years. Max Donaldson came in first in 16:22.4. Lathrop was second, led by Sam King's 4th place finish. The girls' race was the race as Jenna DeFalco makes a final charge to pass Lathrop's Megan Kubicek. DeFalco finished in 19:31.2, just over a second ahead of Kubicek. Lathrop won the regional title, placing in spots 2 through 6 for the girls. Morgan Conroe placed 9th to represent North Pole at state. The Allison boys won the 3A title, and Delta Junction won the girls' 3A title.
I think it was the hardest I've ever ran in my life, but it felt so good because I knew I had her. It's always just run. There's no strategy, it's just run.
Considering I don't usually have a great region champs, it's just really awesome to be able to pull out a good race. So.
And Saturday, it was a matchup of 2 4-0 teams in the Greatland Conference, Allison and Nikiski. Allison beat Nikiski in last year's state championship game. Revenge was on the mind of the Bulldogs. In the second quarter, Michael Stangel put the Bulldogs up with a 25-yard romp into the end zone, and they got a 2-pointer for an 8-0 lead. But 30 seconds later, Tony Griffith answers with a 60-yard TD to make it 8-6. But Nikiski led 29-6 at halftime, scoring 4 times in the second quarter. Stangel and Christian Riddell both had over 100 yards rushing and 2 TDs for the Bulldogs. Nikiski wins 35-20 and are in the driver's seat for the Greatland's #1 seed.
It was just wanted to get back at them from last year. We had some stuff burning up in there and needed to get back at them.
You know, slow start. They were, you know, they were definitely hungry. You know, we've got that target on our back. So, you know, it's not a common thing out here to lose conference games on this field. So, you know, young team. You know, I don't think they're as tuned into that tradition. You know, but we're learning.
And here are the other interior scores for Week 7. Lathrop all over the Homer. Mariners winning 49-0. Jaquise Cannon had 3 touchdowns, and Nathan Barnett had a pick 6 and a sack for the Lathrop defense. Lathrop is 5-2 and finished second in the Rail Belt with a 2-2 record. Monroe beat Vaz 54-0 on Wednesday, and North Pole defeated West Valley 28-13 on Friday. On Saturday, West Pound's #1 service 52-16. We'll have more on the postseason outlook and the latest ASBM polls tomorrow. And to end the weekend recap, we have the I-5. The interior top 5 plays at number 5. Lathrop got their first MAC win and home win on Joe T. Court with a 5-set win over Lathrop on Tuesday night. And coming in at number 4, Tony Griffith with a chest pass to Cody Kane for a 2-point conversion in their 35-20 loss to the Nikiski Bulldogs. And also coming in at number 3, the Monroe Rams seniors. All 5 seniors scored on their first 5 possessions on their senior night as Monroe wins 54-0 over Vaz on Wednesday night. And number 2, the high school cross-country regionals. West Valley's Jenna DeFalco walks Megan Kubacek to win the girls Region 6 race on Saturday, coming all the way from behind. And at number 1, Tyler Morley's game winner, giving the blue team a 3-2 shootout win over the Gold on Saturday. To select the play of the week, go to KTV11 Sports YouTube page and comment on our Facebook and Twitter pages. And that's it for sports tonight, but tomorrow we'll have more on the Nance Cross Country team's recent success and the Region 6 Tennis Championships. Get warm, Alaska. Your full weather forecast is coming up next. We'll catch you next time.
So, Mike Schultz is on a much-needed vacation.
Yeah, California, too.
Yeah. He said he would call us from there, but he hasn't yet.
He's not going to call.
90 degrees, he said.
California.
90.
Well, I'm going to fill in for him as best as I can, and I have some really bad news. I think that it may be coming. Actual snow accumulation. I don't know.
He always leaves when
he does. So don't get mad at me because it's not my fault. Okay, so let's take a look at weather, starting with the Fairbanks Almanac. All right, well, the normal high for today is 46 degrees, normal low 28 degrees. Record high of 71 degrees was set in 2003. The record low of 3 degrees was set in 1992, so at least we're doing better than that. Sunrise at 8 o'clock a.m. and will set at 7:22 p.m. That gives us a grand total of 11 hours and 22 minutes of daylight, a loss of 6 minutes from yesterday. All right, looking at current conditions around our state, starting up north, Barrow 28 degrees under some flurries. Fairbanks, we had mostly cloudy skies today, temps in the 40s. Denali Park, same thing, under mostly cloudy skies. Over to Juneau and Ketchikan. Juneau has cloudy skies, highs of 59 degrees. That's pretty good for them. Ketchikan, rain showers and highs of 49. Over to the western half of the state. Nome was under cloudy coverage, 39 degrees. Bethel, 35 degrees. Cold Bay, 49 degrees, cloud coverage. Over to the Bull, Anchorage, cloudy, 54 degrees. It looks like pretty much the whole state was under clouds today. All right, let's slide on down to the lower 48 to see what they're having going on. Seattle's under rain with 57 degrees. Looks like thunderstorms in New Orleans, 85 degrees. Same thing over there in Miami, thunderstorms, 89 degrees. Up in New York, partly cloudy skies, 73 degrees. And look at that sunshine coming out of Minneapolis, 80 degrees. Looks like a nice day there. All right, back to Alaska for tomorrow in the northern region. Snow in Barrow and Fort Yukon. Clouds are cloudy in Nome, 24 degrees in Barrow. All right, back to the interior for tomorrow. Here's what I was talking about. Snow possible both here and in Healy. Up to 1 inch accumulation overnight is possible. All right, over to the southeast. Light rain across the region, 50s for temperatures there. In the southwest, rain in Cold Bay, scattered clouds in Bethel and Kodiak. Temperatures are in the upper 40s in both Cold Bay and Kodiak, low 40s in Bethel. All right, and lastly to the Anchorage Bowl, scattered clouds in Anchorage and Homer, rain in Valdez. Okay, now let's get back home to Alaska for tonight. To Fairbanks. All right, 34 degrees, rain turning to snow, up to 1 inch accumulation. I guess that's what's throwing me off, guys. All right, 41 degrees, snow continuing. It may turn to rain in the PM. And let's take a look at the 5-day outlook. All right, 42 degrees, mixture of snow and rain on Wednesday. It looks like we'll get a little bit of a reprieve on Thursday and then back to the rain and snow mixture. Temps across the board at 40s. and the lows in the 20s.
Mm-hmm.
Daryl, are you laughing at me or are you laughing at the temps?
Both. But, this is the kind of conditions, so you know, that our former co-anchor, Megan Lewis, would call snurt, a combination of snow.
Snurt, okay.
So
I like that.
Look out for snurt, everybody.
Snow to rain, rain to snow. But you know what that does mean, everybody. Slow down.
Slow down.
Give yourself that extra time to drive because tomorrow morning the roads may be extra icy.
And speaking of tomorrow morning, time to vote. Okay.
All right.
That will wrap up this edition of the Fairbanks Evening News. We are glad you could join us.
NBC Nightly News is coming up next with Brian Williams.
Oh, sorry. We're getting a cue to wrap, and you can join us here 6 days a week at 6 and 11, or online anytime at website11.com.
I'm not a good rapper. From all of us here at the News Center, have a good night.
Yo. Check.